welcome back, fine listeners, and welcome to So That's How That Happened. I'm your gossiping bestie, Jess, and today we are going to be talking about the first wife of King Henry VIII, Catherine of Aragon. I've actually decided to make all of the wives of King Henry VIII into their own series, so each month we will be covering one of the 6 wives of King Henry VIII. Yes, I know they were all not considered his wife. Technically, if you want to get technical and you're going to some sort of bar where they do trivia, it won't say 6, it'll say 2 because the other ones were annulled or taken out of existence. So technically, legally, if you want to get technical about it, he only had 2. And today we will be talking about the first woman that he was with, Catherine of Aragon. So just to set the stage, Catherine of Aragon's a badass, and it's going to be so much fun to talk about her. So let's get down and gossip like we are Tudor court ladies whispering behind our fans. First of all, Catherine was born in 1485 to Ferdinand and Isabella of Spain. Yes, they are exactly who you were thinking of, the people who funded Christopher Columbus. So Catherine came from kind of a big deal family. She wasn't just some girl off the streets. She was a princess in all accord. She was taught from birth and raised to be a queen. Catherine was highly educated, fluent in Latin, and was deeply, deeply religious. This Catherine is the reason that we get into later issues with the Catholics and the Church of England, which we'll kind of get into more later, but very, very religious. And Catherine wasn't even supposed to marry Henry. She was arranged to be married to Prince Arthur, who was Henry's older brother. And this was meant to solidify that alliance between England and France, because, that's just the reason that people had kids. At age 16, Catherine married Prince Arthur in 1501. Yes, I said that right. 16 years old, they got married. But the big fucking question that everybody has is, was this a consummated marriage? Which is so gross to think about. First of all, I hate that word. Hate the word consummated in general. I also hate the thought that people used to, especially for royals, come into the bedroom on the wedding night to make sure they did the do. Like, talk about performance anxiety. I hate it. I hate everything about it. You want to know what I hate more, though? Is Arthur's claims the next morning after the marriage. Because he said he had been in the midst of Spain that night. Yeah, big yuck. Absolutely hate everything about that one. Despite those claims, Catherine insisted throughout her life that she was a virgin when she married Henry, which is very likely because Arthur was extremely sick at the time that him and Catherine were married. So much so that Arthur died just 5 months into their marriage, leaving Catherine a widow at 16 years old. Now with her husband dead, Catherine was stranded in England. Her father refused to send the rest of her dowry, considering her husband died 5 months into it. Understandable on that side, but Henry VII, who was Arthur's father, didn't want to give her back and refused to pay back the dowry in order to give her back. So she's just being held at 16 years old, mind you, in this state of limbo and a battle between her father, the King of Spain, and her father-in-law, the King of England. During this time, Prince Henry, Arthur's younger brother, ended up coming in, and him and Catherine became very, very close. And I think we can all see where this is going, because who's going to take over next? Ding, 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 we have a winner. It's going to be Prince Henry. And this happened in 1509 after his father died. I bet you can guess what one of the first things he does is. If you guessed marry Catherine, you are 100% correct, because Henry is horny all the fucking time and just wants to get some pussy. So like we said before, even though Catherine was beautiful, she was not just a pretty face. She was extremely politically savvy. This girl had been raised from a baby to be a queen. She knew what it takes to rule and the expectations of it. So much so that she ruled as regent when Henry was away in war in France. This fucking badass in 1513 led an army against Scotland Anne won. Like, this woman had more victories in battle than her husband did as a woman in the 1500s. Like, you fucking badass. You go, girl. That is the ultimate girl power move, if I ever saw one. We should all just have shirts that have pictures of Catherine of Aragon on it that says girl power. So with every ups, there are downs, and Catherine of Aragon's downfall all had to do with a male heir. The worst reason of all, because she did all these amazing things, and because she couldn't produce a boy from her, everything started to fall apart around her. And clearly, her and Henry desperately wanted a male heir. They wanted to continue on their line. Not just Henry, Catherine wanted it too. She didn't want it for just her husband. She wanted it for herself, to perpetuate herself on. But pregnancy after pregnancy ended in disaster. This included miscarriages, stillbirths, or infants who just were not long for this world. Their only surviving child was Mary the I. Yes, that Mary, Bloody Mary, which, side tangent, she didn't kill that many people. Like, her sister killed more people. If we're going to get technical about it, her sister killed more people than she did. And her sister did more fucked up shit during her reign than Mary did. But Mary gets the term Bloody Mary because of her trying to bring the country back to Catholicism. That's going to be a whole other topic that we will cover at some point. But just know that. Just know that little tidbit in your mind. So with all this death and destruction, Henry starts to get a little bit restless because he is needing that male heir because he already saw his brother die. He knows the limits of his own mortality. To a point, I don't think Henry was a very intelligent man. I think he just was extremely lustful and wanted a boy to continue his reign. And this is where we start to have the affair with Anne Boleyn. Anne Boleyn was just meant to be a mistress, just like the many of other mistresses that Henry had at the time, but Anne refused to let that happen and insisted on being Henry's wife. And because polygamy wasn't allowed in the 1500s, just like it's not now, something had to go. Catherine had to go, or Anne had to go. Henry starts to attempt to find this loophole just so he can keep Anne in his life. He claims that his marriage to Catherine was never valid because she was previously married to his brother. And Catherine said, "Fuck that," and reminded everyone she was a virgin when she married Henry. Not only that, but the Pope had approved their marriage before they had even gotten married. And to her, that was the highest form of acceptance as a deeply religious woman being told by the Pope, no, you're fine to marry your dead husband's brother because you were a virgin at the time. She's like, great. I don't know what there is else to talk about here. Henry, as we know from experience at this point, is extremely hot-headed and hard-headed, which is a recipe for absolute fucking disaster. And he was not about to take no for an answer. So he tries to have the marriage annulled, and Catherine full on goes to Rome to plead her case, and the Pope sides with Catherine because, like, Catholic squad sticks with Catholic squad. Henry wasn't a great Catholic. Catherine was, and Catherine won that battle. And so she went, ha ha ha, I'm still your wife. Henry absolutely loses his shit because he is an entitled little prince boy who has never been told no in his entire life. And this is where we get the creation of the Church of England. Henry declares himself the head of the church and the head of the state and says, bye-bye, Catherine, and banishes her from court. Catherine not only banished from court, she is stripped of her title and forced to live in exile. After all of this happening, being kicked out, being banished, being exiled, Catherine refused to acknowledge Anne Boleyn as queen. Which, like, girl, same. If somebody came in and was like, hey, I live here now and I'm in charge, I'd be like, fuck you. I was the ruling monarch. I won all these battles. I got him all this prestige. Who the fuck are you? Somebody with adequate pussy? I don't think so. The worst part of all this is how Henry, quote unquote, punishes Catherine. He forbids her from seeing Mary, their only daughter. How fucked up is that? Your only surviving child, after all of this loss, losing literally not only all your other children, but losing everything in the process, and you are told, because you refuse to acknowledge the person who is now sleeping with your husband as queen, that you cannot see your only earthly child. It's horrible. Horrible. But Catherine, to the end, for whatever fucking reason, because I don't understand it, she stays loyal to Henry, even signing the last letter that she sent to him before her death, your most dear and loyal wife. I don't understand that, but that's how much she cared about him. It wasn't just a matter of convenience, because let's face it, the marriage to Arthur was a marriage of alliance and convenience. And Catherine kind of got stuck there, which stinks. But she met Henry, and they did genuinely have love and a connection for each other, at least in the beginning, because he didn't have to marry her. He chose to because of how connected they had become during that time, grieving the same person who was so important to their life, to then totally abandon her, take away her child, take away her title, take away everything she has known for years of her life, and leave her to die alone. In 1536, Catherine ended up dying, and it's most likely because of cancer is what people are thinking nowadays. And this piece of shit, Henry, didn't even show up to her funeral. She loved him until the very end, and he couldn't even be bothered to show up to pay his respects. So what's the takeaway from all this, other than amazing gossip about a woman who married a brother and then married the other brother and then was thrown out of court from an affair? What do we get from this? Well, we get a Protestant Reformation in England, one of the most well-known rulers in England, who, again, we'll talk about. Bloody Mary's coming up. We'll talk about the legend. We'll talk about the real girl. It'll be great. I can even do it on here and on WTF Is That Pod if you guys want, because there's so much to the legend of Mary that we will get to cover. And Mary was just a queen who refused to be erased. And this is a big deal when it comes to Henry. He attempted to have Anne Boleyn erased from history, and we'll get into that next month when we cover Anne Boleyn. But there is speculation that he had another wife where he did end up erasing entire memories of her from history. And we'll kind of go over that too as we go through this series. And that is the tea on Catherine of Aragon, the first wife of Henry VIII and the ultimate ruling badass of England. Remember, if you loved today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, follow me everywhere you get podcasts, follow me on Instagram at So That's How That Happened. We are a part of Orbit Podcast Network. If you have a historical scandal that you would like me to cover, be sure to slide into my DMs or comment on my latest post. Check out Patreon for goodies and special surprises. And with that, stay scandalous.